Jones right up the middle, touchdown, Eastside Catholic. Rolling out is Cobb. Now he goes back. It's intercepted.
Oh, my goodness. And it,
on the way.
Fast.
Jason Wilson could go. Yes. Touchdown, Irish. Rolling to the near side.
He's keeping it.
He's in.
And he's in for the touchdown. Leo.
9, 8, 7, Moser. Has to go. 2 seconds. He puts it forward.
We have made it down, Todd Milles, to the semifinals of the state football championships. We're going to cover all the classifications, all the matchups in 4A, 3A, 2A, and even 1A, and we're doing it with the very best in the business, Todd Milles, Varsity One News. Friday Night Lights with us every single week here on Puck Sports. You can follow Todd, his personal account, Mini Hats Milles, also the new website and venture, Varsity Wad News, at Varsity Wad News on social media. VarsityWadNews.com is the website, and, of course, the YouTube and podcast pages where you can hear him a couple of times a week, Wednesday, midweek, and then, of course, after all the games, Friday or Saturday, Varsity Wad News on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms. All right, we're down to the semifinals. Todd, you and I, we're going to go through all of the brackets. We're going to give love to 2A and 1A. And I'm telling you, you can go other places for coverage. This guy's going to have as much to say about the 1A games, but I'll have to cut him off a little bit. We can't go too long. That he's going to have to say about the 4A games. So let's start. And again, all of this, he's got previews up at VarsityWadNews.com right now of all classifications, in-depth detail on all of these games. Todd, here we go. It goes by fast. We say it all the time. Let's jump right into it. Let's get into the 4A right now. And you don't want to look ahead, but we've got to have two great games taking place and two great rivalries of 4 schools and communities that have a history with one another. They're rivals. They've played a lot of games over the years, which will be certainly just a ton of fun to kind of watch all these games develop here this weekend. Let's first start with the game, 4 o'clock, Lake Stevens High School on Saturday. Number 6, Graham Kapowsin comes into the game 11-1, taking on number 2, Lake Stevens, undefeated this year at 12-0.
Yeah, I mean, Graham Kapowsin has not been open that long, and they've already played. This will be the 7th time that they've played in the WIA playoffs. They've played each other twice in state championship games, one each by each school. In fact, they kicked off Gridiron Classic at Husky Stadium 2 years ago, Lake Stevens, with the Lake Stevens win to repeat as state champs. Offense, I mean, you look at what both of these teams did last week. I mean, Lake Stevens and Moses Lake. I mean, I knew Moses Lake. I knew that was going to be a high-scoring game because Brady J had to keep throwing and throwing and throwing. But Blake Moser, I mean, this is soon going to be a household name for people who follow high school football in the state of Washington. He's in his first year as a starting quarterback. It's like he's shot out of a cannon. He's so fast. I mean, he's the fastest guy playing quarterback in the state. He's a baseball player. What's really impressed me is his development as a passer as the season has gone on, and he's got a fantastic receiving core led by Seth Price. I think the first one to 60 wins this game, honestly, Jason. I mean, but look what Graham Kapowsin did going to Gonzaga Prep, a tough place to play, a really tough style to play against in the triple option, and put up 42 points. AJ Tuivasa was over 500 yards passing. I mean, what these two offenses did, Lake Stevens a little over 700 yards. I think GK was almost 670 yards. I mean, we're talking high school football. These are still 12-minute quarters, Jason. And these two offenses did that last week. Again, I know it's high school football and it's not guaranteed the week after, but sure. I have a sneaking suspicion that both of these offenses will continue to do what they're doing. And it's going to be a really, really high-scoring game at Lake Stevens on Saturday.
Can you imagine the sleepless nights leading up to this game for these two defensive coordinators?
Oh, you're screwed if you're a defensive coordinator in this game. Oh,
And it starts both right with these two quarterbacks. You talked about Blake Mosher, but God, Graham Kapowsin as a young kid that I remember seeing last year. That was he just pops out at you how talented he is,
he's a big
and
guy.
he's
AJ
huge.
Tuivaave, his dad was a defensive end at Washington High School. Almost, had some interest from Washington State University. So he's got a little bit of his dad's build, but he is the most accurate deep ball passer, Jason, I've seen in many years. And he's got guys that can go run and get it. That's what's so scary for this Lake Stevens secondary that's given up a lot of passing touchdowns and passing yards the last couple of weeks. But I also think that Graham Kapowsin's defense is going to have a really difficult time, containing that offensive backfield. Like we said, Blake Moser and Javion Farrell, who seem to put up 200 yards rushing and 400 yards rushing and passing every week. It's just unbelievable how good these two offenses are and have been all year.
The Moser is a junior, right?
Moser's a junior, correct?
And AJ's a sophomore.
AJ's a sophomore, and we're going to see these guys next year. If they retain what they have on paper right now, Jason, I would be hard pressed to think that they are not the top two teams coming back in our preseason rankings next year. Puyallup will have a say in that too with what they have coming back, but the majority of both of these rosters will be back next year.
Yeah. Blake is kind of under the radar just in terms of the recruiting because, as Todd said, he's a junior, first year playing, quarterback. Interest will come for him. AJ, who is, again, played as a freshman, now as a sophomore, is listed as a 3-star recruit. I mean, he's had interest from Washington, Arizona State, BYU, Cal, Miami. And of course, that's just going to keep getting more and more. And Todd has mentioned this, but you have a really appreciation for how big this kid is. I mean, they list him at 6'3", 240. I mean, he's all of that. He is a big kid, and it'd be fun to watch. And generally in these big games, Todd, it comes down to which quarterback can make a play.
Yeah, and AJ's been playing with in the second half of the year with a little bit of a foot injury. You can see it a little bit in his throwing. He doesn't get all of his body into it, but he has such a big arm that he can still get the ball down the field 50 yards. And he still has enough mobility to keep defenses honest. But I truly believe this is a game that's going to come down to the two quarterbacks. It's going to be unbelievable to see what they pass for or pass and rush for. I think the totals, we're going to just giggle next week when we see how this game comes out.
I don't want to give it away, but you got to go and go to varsitywanews.com. He gives his pick and the score, and just take the over. There's not betting in high school football, and we're not advocating for that, but just take the over. The other game that will be taking place earlier, so when these guys kick off at 4, Graham Kapowsin and Lake Stevens, they will likely know who they're going to play in the state championship game a week from Saturday. Number 5 Sumner's 9-3 on the year, taking on Puyallup, who's undefeated. It will kick off at 1 o'clock at Spark Stadium. I was talking to the Prince of Puyallup, of course, Chris Egan. I said, what do you think? How many people do you think? He was estimating between 7,000 and 10,000 people could show up for this game between these two rivals.
Well, you mentioned they'll know by 4 o'clock. If Puyallup continues to get off to the starts that they've gotten to against everybody, they might, Lake Stevens and Graham Kapowsin might know by 1:15. I mean, let's be honest. They have just taken the suspense out of pretty much every game that they've played this season because they just get on the field and go. How a lot of teams, it takes them a few minutes to get into a game, and not Puyallup. It's like first snap, go. They did it against Sumner. They did it against Graham Kapowsin. They've done it throughout the whole playoffs. Their offense has just yet to be tripped up. Now, Sumner has enough physicality, and now that they've seen Noah Smith, because I don't think people realize that was Noah Smith's first game at quarterback. Sumner didn't know what they were getting into. If you played in the PSL last year against Central Kitsap, you might have been familiar with Noah Smith, but not this Noah Smith in this offense. So Sumner now knows what it's facing and has had, not only this week to really kind of hone in on it, but a few weeks to kind of digest what happened to him. I think you're going to see a lot of Lance McGee in this game, who will be the best player on the field. He used to be a linebacker, commit to Oregon State. He's now since decommitted, and he's gotten some interest as a running back. He has had a fantastic year running the football for Sumner. And for a guy that came to Sumner in the summer, was almost 240 pounds. He was a little overweight, making the rounds at the college, on the college visits and things like that. He is now under 210 pounds. And he is not only strong, he is really, really fast. He is going to be a handful. It would not surprise me if he gets 35 carries in this game. In fact, I think Sumner needs, if he doesn't carry the ball 35 times in this game, Sumner loses. So Lance McGee has to be heavily involved, or Puyallup will roll to the championship game.
And this was a game they met earlier this year, highly anticipated game. It was a game in which Puyallup rolled over Sumner, was not close, 58-22. You have a feeling this game was going to be much closer this time around.
Yeah. Again, you have to just kind of survive that first quarter. Sumner just kind of got buried. They went 3 and out on their first drive. And then Puyallup went all runs on its first drive to score with Brighton Bailey, who's no slouch himself running the football either, Jason. So you need to survive that first quarter. And I think Sumner, again, they will not abandon the run like they kind of did in the first half against Puyallup the first time. So, yes, I do anticipate it's going to be closer. Sumner's saying all the right things. We learned our lesson. We're definitely up for this game. That was just a bad version of us. We will be better this time around. And I do tend to believe him. Whether it's enough to knock off the Vikings, I don't know. I'm not betting on that, but I do think it's going to be a closer game.
All right. So when the games are all done on Saturday, who do you think plays in the state championship game in the 4A?
I think the top 2 seeds advance. I think you're going to see a Puyallup versus Lake Stevens Gridiron Classic championship game on Saturday night. And we might break attendance records in Husky Stadium with those two fan bases coming out. What Lake Stevens has done the last half decade, and then obviously Puyallup is one of the traditional blue bloods with all the quarterback legacy and stuff. The whole town will be out, much like Sumner was last year. Puyallup will be out as well.
I just think we were talking before we started recording, and again, these are games, and it's not like we're rooting for this to happen. But if that is indeed the matchup, I think this becomes one of the most highly anticipated championship games in Washington State history, these two programs, because of how good they are and how dominant both have been this season. And if it comes to fruition, both undefeated and both just putting up gaudy numbers, it will be incredible theater over there at Husky Stadium. Let's jump over to the 3A. Mount Tahoma, we'll start there first. They won the all-city Tacoma matchup with Lincoln. They're undefeated. They're the number 2 team. They're taking on Eastside Catholic. Eastside Catholic is 10-1 on the season. Again, you come out, 2 of these teams left. 3A, of course, they're from Metro. It should be a very good game. Mount Tahoma led by Elijah Durer. You pointed out he's a UW commit. Lots of great players on this field. Eastside Catholic has been there. They're battle-tested, right, Todd? This is kind of new territory for Mount Tahoma.
Yeah, we talked about, maybe 60 points winning that Lake Stevens Graham Kapowsin game on Saturday. I think 20 will win this game. I mean, you kind of touched on a little bit of some of the offensive pieces individually that both offenses have. Elijah Dorr, Micah Cordero, Nazi White from Mount Tahoma. You got Asa Thompson, Luca Villasenor, Titan McNeil, Nick Jones on the Eastside Catholic offense. But make no mistake about it, these two teams are driven by the defense. You could put O'Day on the short list with them, but these are the 2 of the 3 most physical defenses and defensive fronts you're going to find in the state of Washington. Eastside Catholic has Wasi Lugalobi. He's the best linebacker in the state. Aiden Havili, sophomore up-and-comer. He will be a big-time recruit at defensive tackle. Braden Peely. And I know we haven't talked about this connection, but Braden and Caden Peely had joined Eastside Catholic in the summer because their brother is Brandon Peely, who signed with the Seahawks and was with the organization, was waived, has been brought back, and I think he's right now on the active roster, but they have enough confidence in his stay with the Seahawks that the family moved from Alaska this summer and brought the two boys with them, and they joined that program and been big-time contributors on their defensive line. And then Titan McNeil, obviously a defensive end, but he's also one of the top tight end prospects in the country. And then Mount Tahoma, I mean, Teven Jones, the P3A PSL co-defensive player of the year, Andrew Asali, Peter Liato, Shan Jones, and then Felix Diaz, who kind of plays that hybrid safety. They are just really difficult, both of them, to move the football on. It really is which offense is going to make a big play and which offense isn't going to make a fatal mistake, because I think that these two defenses are a wash.
And in the end, you think who comes out?
I went back and forth with this all week, Jason. I had Eastside Catholic all the way up till 5 minutes before it posted. There's just something about the Mount Tahoma playing at home.
Yeah.
They just make a play every week where you go, okay, yeah, I didn't see that coming. It's in special teams return or a pick six like Elijah Durr last week. They just make a game-changing play every week, and I think that they're going to find a way to do it again to get to the state championship game. So I picked Mount Tahoma in a very, very low-scoring game.
All right, the other semifinal game, it will kick off 1 o'clock Saturday at Renton Memorial Stadium. These are two teams that are just so familiar with each other because they just keep meeting all the time. They're in the playoffs and in the championship games. O'Day and Bellevue, as you wrote, and you're exactly right, this is more than just a rematch of last year's state title game, which was won there by O'Day. They have played in the playoffs 7 times since 2002. O'Day won last year 38-15, but before that, as you note, the Irish were only 2-4 against Bellevue, and 2 of those losses coming in the 2003 and 2011 state title game. O'Day had no problem last week in advancing with a 56-21 victory over Cedro Woolley. And then I went there and watched Bellevue take on Lakes. I stayed for a half. That's all I needed. I don't think Bellevue had a scoring drive that was longer than 4 plays against Lakes. They are a machine. They are fast. These are not just at the 3A level, Todd. These are the 2 Mount Rushmore premier programs in our state, and it's going to be a heck of a game coming up on Saturday afternoon.
It's going to be an interesting chess match. The roles are a little reversed from last year. I mean, Bellevue came into Gridiron Classic, the number 1 seed, the favorite. Monty kind of threw a monkey wrench in what he does defensively, playing kind of a odd 3-3 stack, and it threw Bellevue, that wing T, for a loop, enough of a loop where Uriah Stringfield, kind of got going, and that team really got rolling to a win. I know that Bellevue, that was a tough loss for Bellevue to go into the offseason with. I think you're going to see the Wolverines with they're going to have a couple tricks up their sleeve because they know they're the underdog. They know they really can't go to toe-to-toe, especially on the interior with one of the best defensive fronts that we've seen in the state in decades. But they don't have to. I mean, Max Jones will give them enough of a middle run presence at fullback, but you saw it last week, all that speed. They even got Kason Carter, the quarterback, going in the run game. But, Witherspoon and Jemerson and all those guys, they have sprinter speed to get to the outside, and if O'Day's not ready for it, they could give up a few big plays. That's all it takes to what I think is going to decide a pretty close game. I think it's one that the Irish will do what they've done to everybody. They'll kind of wear down that group of sophomores on defense and prevail and get to the Gridiron Classic one more time.
Okay, so you're anticipating a O'Day versus Mount Tahoma 3A title game.
Yeah, it's something different.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, it'd be great. I mean, I think all those games, at both levels are just going to be fantastic. All right, let's go move on. Let's give some love to the 2A. All right, we got East Valley of Yakima. They're undefeated, taking on Tumwater. Another, I think we could say, a Mount Rushmore in high school football in the state. Tumwater is 11-1. Sid Otten Field down there in Tumwater, 3 o'clock on Saturday. Todd.
Yeah, it's a nice habit for Tumwater, play 3 games at home and then go straight to Husky Stadium here which is what they've done the last couple of years. It's a nice routine to be in, and I think they'd like to continue that this weekend and get back to Husky Stadium, where they've come up short the last couple of years to anacortes. But it's a wing tee that pretty much lets everybody touch the ball. Yeah, Peyton Davis is kind of their workhorse, but everybody touches the ball. So you just don't really know, who to stop. The balance is just so frustrating to face. And by the way, their defense is still good. They have a really good group of juniors that have, come along really nicely, this season. Won another EFCO championship. Really haven't been tested outside the loss to Puyallup, and they played Puyallup close in week one. But East Valley, Jason, and people on the west side are like, what? East Valley? Yakima has a team? It's been 20 years. Been 20 years since Yakima proper has sent a team to the state championship game, and lo and behold, it was East Valley 20 years ago. They are good. They are good. Jackson Berg, Grayson Stevens, their run defense has just stoned everybody, which is good news because they're facing a run team this weekend. Another game that I kind of went back and forth with, I really, really came close to picking East Valley, but coming over the mountains and going to Siddoughton Field where the magic lives, I picked the Mighty Green to get back to the state championship for a third consecutive year.
Okay. And you're speaking of Grayson Stevens, you mentioned Montana State commit, track and field guy, 73 catches on the year for 1,250 yards and 21 touchdowns. Now, I don't get that information myself. I'm not smart enough. I get that from VarsityOneNews.com and Todd Milles. All right. That's why I'm a subscriber. That's why you need to be a subscriber there as well. All right. Let's go to the other 2A game. Boy, Anacortes has been one of the best stories in high school football in the last several years, being this non-existent football program. I mean, non-existent to they are now the two-time 2A state champions. And I think it was the last year, 2 years ago, I've never seen a stadium at Huskies that full. The entire town of Anacortes was there. And then when they returned home, that entire group of people were back to welcome them home. And it was one of the best things I've ever seen in high school football. They're 10-2 this year, taking on a blue blood powerhouse at the 2A level in Archbishop Murphy, who's 11-0. How does Archbishop Murphy knock them off and prevent the three-peat?
Well, just continue to do what they're doing. They're the favorite in this bracket. They've already hammered Anacortes during the regular season, put them on running clock in the second half. They come at you with some serious D1 talent. Isaiah Davis. We've talked about this, Andrew Lucas, Abe Lucas's little brother who's coming back from an injury. The Sievers brothers. I mean, they just run and run and run. And then, oh, by the way,
tell them about the safety.
Oh my gosh, the safety.
Henry
Gonzalez. My God. He is, it's like watch. I mean, how do I say this kindly? Like he's like an athletic Igor. Like he's like 6'6", and I mean, there's a reason why Brandon Huffman moved him up to number 2 in this class of Washington State high school seniors in the recruiting world. He's just, it's hard to explain him. He's just such a unbelievable athlete for how big and how tall he is.
He's roughly about 6'6", 230 pounds, plays tight end, but also on defense plays safety.
He pushes 6'7", but he's just, I mean, you can't match up with him. I mean, these guys from Anacortes are regular high school football players. You might get a 6-foot cornerback, but what other than elbowing him in the gut, like how do you how would you defend somebody like that? And he scored a couple touchdowns in the first meeting. He's going to be a problem for Anacortes. Oh, by the way, that's when they want to pass it. But first, they're going to just kind of tenderize you with that wing T offense. And then how do you move the ball on them? I mean, they're just massive across the board in their front seven. But this is the one team, because of the contrast and styles, if they can keep Ryan Harrington upright for a couple more seconds, they've got some guys that can create some mismatches in the pass game. Luca Evans, Micah Davison, Zeke Hawkins, all three of those guys are really good receivers, would do really well in bigger school programs. They just need to find ways to sustain drives and make sure that they stay ahead and down the distance, because they did not do that in the first meeting minus 13 yards in the first half. It was a brutal showing for that offense that just sort of got wiped off the field in the first matchup. I don't think that'll happen again, but I do think the result will be the same.
Okay, let me ask you a question about Archbishop Murphy. How talented they are. Could they compete with the Bellevue and O'Day at the 3A level? Could they even compete with the Lake Stevens, Sumner, Puyallup at the 4A level?
No question. No question. You get off the bus, they look like a well-oiled 4A program, both in numbers and in size and in college-bound talent. And the style they play, I mean, it would be a problem for 3A and 4A programs. I think we talked about this on the podcast. They scrimmaged O'Day in the summer, and it got really nasty, really heated. But it was, by the people who were there, they said it was a stalemate. Like, O'Day could not move Archbishop Murphy. Now, Archbishop Murphy could not move O'Day, but this is a team that could, I'm not saying they'd go win the 3A or 4A, but they easily could be playing in the 3A and 4A brackets this deep into the year.
All right, let's move on to the 1A. Let's first start with Mount Baker 10-1 taking on number 2 Kashmir. They are 10-1. And again, this is kind of familiar territory here. Kashmir's been one of the great stories of the season, have been for a while. Defense has kind of been upright in their calling card. How do you think this game shakes out on Saturday?
Yeah, the good old Apple Bowl in Wenatchee, one of the few places I've only driven by but have not watched a game in. Yeah, again, another group that's kind of built for this year. A lot of 3-year starters on this team, led by Rylan Hadamaker, the quarterback. A really good receiving core. Pren Fox, who's the lone Division I commit of the 4 teams in 1A. He's a problem on the offense and defensive line. Greg Jacobson, the defensive MVP of a deep 1A SCAC. Hey, listen, I went and watched these guys play Royal in the regular season. They controlled a lot of that game and ended up losing in overtime. But at the end of that game, and when Lauren and I walked out of that stadium, Jason, we were more impressed with Kashmir than we did walking in the stadium. They are a really, really good football team, ready for this moment. Ron Lepper, one of the good guys in the state of Washington, he coaches wrestling, he coaches football, he coaches softball, he's the athletic director. They even played Bellevue this year. I mean, what a year that they've had in the wing tee. But I think going over to Kashmir with their defense and their offensive ceiling, that's going to be a tough ask for Mount Baker. I think Kashmir wins by a couple touchdowns and gets to the Gridiron Classic.
And they've got D1 talent, as you wrote about it at Kashmir. Pren Fox is the number 9 senior recruit, according to 24/7 Sports. He is committed to UNLV over Boise State and Boston College. Are Washington and Washington State just falling asleep and didn't pay attention to what's going on over there?
I mean, I knew he's football. He was adopted by a family in Kashmir from Africa. He was new to football. He was more of a weightlifting guy when he got there, who's learned to play football. But last year, he kind of really turned a corner on defense and started getting into the circuit. And yeah, I don't know what UW and Wazoo. I know they were there at the Huffman, Avery Strong, combine that I was at UPS. So I know they've seen him. I know they're familiar with them. But why they didn't pull the trigger, I don't know.
Well, there is a picture of him that you guys have up on your website, Varsity One News, for the 1A preview section taken by Lauren Smith. And I mean, you take one look at him and you can be like, oh, that looks like he looks like a 4A player. I mean, there's just, he's a big kid. So the other 1A game is featuring Royal taking on, which would be a great matchup, taking on Linden Christian. Royal comes in undefeated. Todd, Linden Christian is 10-1, 3:00 Saturday at Royal High School there in Royal City. You talked about Kashmir, their defense, and you wrote about Royal's defense as well. The combined, right, of these two teams, 12 shutouts in their victories in 22 games. That is impressive. I would assume Royal, the same recipe as in their semifinal matchup there with Linden Christian. How can Linden Christian pull off the upset on Saturday?
Well, they're going to have to kind of duplicate what they did a few years ago. They're the last team to beat Royal. They went to Royal City and beat the Knights. That's not easy to do. You can count on one hand how many times people have done that to Wiley Allred's team on his home field. But they ran the ball a lot. But they've got a pretty good running back up there too in Koyman. But their bread and butter is throwing the football. I mean, Eli Mayberry, Boyce Robertson, their cousins. They like to throw the football. They like to get people out in space and throw the football. And Royal's like, come on, do it. We want you to, because our secondary, it seems like their secondary has 5 interceptions and a pick 6 every week. I mean, they're just waiting for it. They did the same thing to Colton Gesser last week. They've done it every year, but to Colton Gesser, but they're just that's what they're waiting for. They want Lyndon Christian to throw the ball now, but I think Lyndon Christian's going to have to hunker down, be disciplined, just kind of milk the clock, shorten the game with Koyman. They've got a Veldman kid at tight end and linebacker who's a really good 2-way player. They're going to have to try and play a little more physical, because that's the recipe to beat Royal. If you're going to get back and throw it 40 times a game, there's 0 chance you're going to win this game at Royal City. I hope Lyndon Christian realizes that, and they've had a great year, and they can put up points on the board, but you're not doing that at Royal City. I'm sorry. You're not doing that to the Knights, the 5-time defending champs.
Guys, there's just so much great information. VarsityWaNews.com. Todd and Lauren Smith, who also works on the website, just great breakdown. They have a 2B breakdown as well. But every detailed stuff, we've gone through it, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. Be sure to check out the podcast as well. Comes out twice a week. Their Varsity Wa News up on YouTube and all podcast platforms, and VarsityWaNews.com. Get a subscription. I know people are being asked for subscriptions everywhere, but if you love great, thorough, really good high school sports coverage, there's just second to none what you've done, and a lot of hard work you put into it. I love these visits every week. I can't wait to watch how these games unfold. I mean, I'm so excited for the Puyallup-Sumner game. I'm contemplating I was going to go to Pullman to watch my Cougs play, because I haven't been all year, but I've been one time. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to go over there, because I want to go watch that game, because I want to be one of the potentially 10,000 people that are going to be inside Spark Stadium. But I just think it's going to be a great weekend of high school football. And be sure to check out Todd. He'll have his Varsity Wa recap podcast coming up late Saturday night. Well, probably with the games, they're kind of early, so you'll have it before midnight, I would assume. But be sure to check out all of his coverage again at VarsityWaNews.com. Thank you, Todd. We will chat next week, championship week and championship preview.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, Jason. We'll talk next week.
You as well. Thank you, Todd.